Hey guys, back again for another week of industry insights. Got a special one for you this week. If you've ever wanted to learn more about the food industry, how to get involved, and anything to do with food manufacturing or processing, this is the week for you. So I'm joined here with Adele Quick, who works for Nestle as a technical and production engineer. How you doing, Adele?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Cool.
Pretty
So,
good,
can you tell us a bit more
given
about your?
every circumstances.
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit crazy at the moment, especially in the last few weeks. Everyone's kind of been up in the air, not really sure what's going on, where things are going. But I think you're a bit better off than we are. You're not in Victoria anymore, are you?
I am. I moved
Oh,
back
you
this
are.
year, actually. Yeah,
Really?
so I was in Queensland last year on my first rotation, but I'm back in Melbourne this year, so I'm in the brunt of it all.
Okay. Okay. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. Well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your job at Nestle.
Yeah, so I'm in the technical and production next gen graduate program. So
Okay.
it's not specific to engineering. They take on different sort of technical backgrounds.
Hmm.
So, for instance, there was a woman who'd studied food science, and then myself, who in
Hmm.
our intake.
Okay.
I did a first year of rotation in Gympie in Queensland at
Hmm.
the instant coffee factory up there,
Oh,
and now
lovely.
I'm in Melbourne working at the Kit Kat factory.
Oh, perfect. So, I mean,
Yeah.
are you just really involved in the production side of Nestle, or do you see any more of the other side of the business?
You do different rotations in the grad program, so there's
Hmm.
sort of 6 month rotations. We do 4 of them.
Okay.
Um, Everything is production based because you're working on site.
Hmm.
So something that I loved about the job, and I always knew I wanted. I think it was after that week of work experience at uni when they
Yeah.
stuck us in this, and I went, "This is not what I wanted at all."
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to work in the factory, and yeah, everything in the factory is focused on production. And even when you
Yeah.
work in logistics, you still have production focus.
Definitely. Yeah, it's amazing how eye-opening some of those experiences can be. It's very polarizing. You either completely want to be on the factory or completely want to be in the office, or
Yeah,
often you do get a mix of both, but it's always great.
yeah.
So, can you tell us, and the guys listening at home, a little bit about more about Nestle and just how how their Australian operations are set up?
Yeah, so Nestle is obviously a massive consumer goods company, one of the largest in the world. Globally, I did a bit of Googling earlier because I thought you'd ask something here. They have 403 factories in 84 countries.
Oh, nice.
Australia is one of them.
Mm,
And Australia's production, we're actually sort of gradually shrinking as all production
okay.
is,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
unfortunately.
But we do still have some factories. So they've got one in Queensland,
Mm,
we've got 3 in Victoria, and 1 in New South Wales.
okay.
They've also got 1 in New Zealand, which is part of the Oceania Loop.
Mm,
So that's the main operations here. And sort of varies. Like we have a pet food factory, we have
yeah.
food factory. So they do a range of different products in Australia as well.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
Lots of people know the brands of Nestle, so I won't necessarily go through
Yeah,
those because
definitely. I think if we tried to go through the brands, we'd be here for almost the entire
it's
segment.
like over
It
2,000
just is
brands or
massive.
something.
That's the good thing about some of these like large multinational companies is you've got such a large portfolio. There's always something you can be interested in. It's never boring, basically. So
Yeah, definitely.
is it just kind of like production in Australia, or is there any other focus of the company at all?
Production mostly. Oh, look, everything is production focused in the end. That's how we make
I
our money.
suppose it would be, yeah.
But like we have a head office in Sydney, so they have all their marketing operations, any sort of corporate roles sit up there.
Mm,
And then in the factories, you obviously have your production on the floor, but
yeah.
then each factory has different departments like safety, quality, logistics, product development,
Okay.
that sort of thing. So maintenance, engineering, they all are in the factories as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there must be heaps of different food production companies out there. How do you think Nestle kind of stays ahead of the curve? Well, why do you think they've become so successful over the years?
I have no idea. I think
Is it just that
it's
they make good biscuits and good instant coffee?
everybody loves Kit Kat. I From what I've understood, they're good at acquiring companies too. So a lot of the
Mm,
brands that we have don't necessarily own the factories. We
mm,
do what's called a virtual factory. So
mm.
we you occupy their line for some of the time, and we
Okay,
still brand, but we don't own the factory it runs in.
right, okay.
So it
Yeah.
works like that. Some of our factories, like our factory in Victoria that does all the Uncle Toby's and cereals, it actually
Mm.
also makes like home brand wheat bix and stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
other production for other companies too. But
Yeah.
I honestly have no idea how it got so massive. But it's been around for over 150 years. So I
Yeah.
think time has been a bit of it too.
Definitely. I mean, all that experience doesn't come into play. But I just never would have thought that'd be changing between different facilities like that. So I mean, what's really the main focus for Nestle in Australia? Is it just that production thing, or would you say they're trying to just come up maybe with new products all the time, or is there kind of some general focus in one area? Or is
Yeah, so I mean, like we all have the same shared values, obviously. So
mm,
in general, Nestle always strives towards having a positive impact on the communities they
mm,
operate in, creating healthier lifestyles. I know it seems unreasonable with chocolate, but they always try and do,
yeah,
give you the right portion sizes, that sort of
mm,
thing. And then having low or zero impact on the environment is what they're striving for.
definitely.
One at the moment that we're sort of focused on globally, but in Australia as well, is having all packaging either recyclable or reusable by 2025.
Mm,
So that's a big one that's sort of we now are upgrading lines to fit, being able to do paper packaging,
mm,
redesigning packaging, that sort of thing. So that's one that's like come from a global standpoint, but is down here as well.
mm.
But locally, like at the Kit Kat factory, we call it NPD, so new product development is
Okay.
massive
Oh,
all
very
the
cool.
time. New trials, new
Yeah.
flavors.
New
Um,
flavors of Kit Kat. I can imagine that would be a big area of focus.
yeah, yeah. So they're always running something new. And so that's a massive focus. And then in general, Nestle is all about continuous excellence. So
Mm,
continually improving, upholding good standards,
definitely. Yeah,
so
just
lean manufacturing.
yeah.
There's a lot of Nestlified ways to do it, but
Oh, I
yeah,
love that. They've got the little catchphrase for it and everything. That's great.
yeah,
It's so
yeah.
cool. So then how does your job as like a technical and production graduate kind of fit into that whole role? Are you just kind of focused in one area, or have you got a few different kind of roles you bounce between?
So I've done a few different roles. In Gympie, I started off in the engineering department.
Mm,
Did a lot of environmental sort of work with the site's environmental reporting.
mm,
So they had a massive bubbling fluid bed boiler, which
yeah.
might ring a few bells for people.
Mm,
So a lot to do with steam consumption, waste management,
yeah.
that sort of thing. I also did a bit of project engineering, some related to uni and then some not. So I got to design a sort of new self-cleaning filter to
Mm,
implement in the current process that we had. So I got to do all the
yeah.
P&IDs and sort of that, quotes, and then put forward a CapEx submission.
Mm.
But then I also installed a roller door. So it was really like diverse um,
It does kind of
experience.
happen like that when you start going into that project engineering type of thing. It's not always technically focused. Sometimes you just need to change the site in a way that makes things start working.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then my second rotation, I was down on the production floor,
Mm,
more focused around training operators how to use operating systems on computers and that sort of thing.
okay.
It tends to have an aging workforce. People stick around for a long
Yeah.
time, so it's difficult to find someone that's been there for like 40, 50 years. It just also means they're not very good with technical side of computers
Mm,
and that sort of thing. So my last few months in Queensland, I was helping with that. This year in Campbellfield, I started off in a performance acceleration team,
okay.
which was a bunch of international people came to site and they were focused on improving the lines and reducing cost.
Mm,
So that was a really good opportunity. Not something many people get to be a part of with Nestle, so that was really good.
yeah,
That,
definitely. As that's the kind of
like,
stuff that's very iterative as well. You kind of have to approach it from a number of different ways, and there's always a little bit more you could do, or that little bit further you could go with it, and it makes it quite difficult in the real world to do.
yeah, and I think like as much of not many of the roles have been technically based, the way you learn and the way you think throughout your degree can be applied to everything.
Definitely.
So I think that's the main thing that's helped me in all of the roles. As much as I can't
Yeah,
say I've done my process engineering, I can say I've used all the learning and the thinking
yeah,
that
definitely.
I've done. And then at the moment, I'm a line manager.
Okay, so
Um,
what's like a normal day in the life of a line manager then? How do you kind of start your day? What's normal?
Nothing's normal at the moment with COVID. But
Fair enough.
we start our day, come in, line starts running at 6:30. I've got a nice little line, the one that makes peppermint crisp and a few other
Oh, I love
bars.
those. Those are one of my favorites.
Nothing too big.
Yeah.
Everyone loves it on a pav.
Exactly.
So yeah, we see how the line's running. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they're all good and I can carry on with the day. If not, if they've had a bad startup, then I'm generally there to sort of help just get the operators thinking. Often they know what they want to do, they just need that little push along to go, yeah, they're on the right track.
Yeah, they're too busy smelling the chocolate, are they?
Yeah, quality control.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, I think it's all based around the line, but I do the labor for the line, I do all the safety, the quality, making sure that we're sticking to the plan, and then obviously chuck in a whole bunch of meetings throughout the day, and that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously there's a lot of differences between like a food production line and what maybe students would say is a traditional kind of chemical engineering job, making like chemicals or working in a petroleum refinery. Do you think there's like many differences, or are there some similarities between those two kind of areas?
I think the differences more lie around food safety and handling. That's probably the major difference. Like we have a certain hygiene level that has to be maintained, and different areas of the factory make different products. And like our factory does all of the butter menthols and anti-cols and like soothers. So that whole medicated side is like completely separate to the chocolate. There's different standards in each area, and that sort of thing. I think the way we clean is also different because you again have to maintain the hygiene.
It's got to be food grade and it's got to be fit for human consumption.
Yeah. All the equipment we use, like stainless steel, that sort of thing. So
I imagine everything would be stainless steel and it'd be horribly expensive.
It's always got to have hygienic engineering, that sort of thing. So it's it's different in that aspect, but I think the concepts of the manufacturing are probably quite aligned across the board.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll be dealing with more of the hazardous chemicals and stuff, but you're dealing more with the food standards and very tightly controlled quality control kind of measures, whereas they might have a bit more wiggle room to play with, or they can kind of find a different route, but you're kind of more into it. So I mean, one thing I suppose everyone could kind of relate to and would definitely relate back to that adherence to like Australian standards and stuff. I mean, everyone's picked up like a Nestle product or even just a Cadbury, what have you, and they see that little kind of script down there. It's like may contain traces of nuts and all that kind of stuff. How do you guys actually make sure that there are no allergens in your products? Do you have to swap entire process lines, or do you have to do deep cleans in between different production batches?
Yeah, it really depends what sort of you're swapping between. Honestly, a lot of the products, there's really not too many allergens that you would need to worry about that aren't in one product and not the other, sort of thing. When you're swapping, say like on a Kit Kat line, if you're swapping from milk chocolate or dark chocolate to white chocolate, you don't want to end up with a different chocolate in your white chocolate.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like a full line clearance before you can operate. Otherwise, you send out product that's not to the quality standard. Definitely. So we do have certain cleaning. I think it comes into the planning aspect of things a lot. They have to sort of balance like how long do you run for that warrants a full line clean. You need to make sure you get along with the lot size, that it makes sense. To chuck in an 8-hour clean, something like that, depends what it is.
So then how often would you actually be changing products over on your production lines? So is it maybe just like 3 or 4 production lines each with 3 or 4 products, or do you just have the one line and you just kind of continuously swapping over products throughout the day or the week?
Okay, so I'll talk like Kit Kat area. We have 3 lines that do the bars, and they all sort of have their own specialties. Like one is a faster line and it's newer. Then we've got 2 the older lines, but like one does the family blocks and one does the bars. They all run at the same time. They run 3 shifts. They run 5-6 days a week. Tend to swap products up to 3 times a day, 3-4 times.
Wow, okay. That's a lot faster than I was expecting.
Needed. It really depends on the line. My little line will run the same product all week. Maybe swap halfway through the week. But the high demand lines, they can swap multiple times in a day.
That's crazy. So there must be a lot of work going into the changeover then if you've got all those cleaning protocols you have to go through and then swapping out equipment and everything. How long does it actually take to swap over a line? And obviously it'll be different for each of the areas, but is there like a
So they tend to try and plan so that you're sort of swapping from the same templates, you minimize changeovers and that sort of thing as much as you can. But we do a lot of work to optimizing those. So it's we use what's called a SMED methodology, which was actually invented in Japan. I think Toyota were the first ones, and it's like trying to optimize their change parts and stuff. So it can take like 2 hours for a changeover. Some lines it could take half an hour, and then others, if it requires a clean, you could be looking at like 8 hours.
That's crazy.
So it really depends.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love the fact that you grabbed that idea from a car manufacturer and you're applying it to chocolate bars. That's just great in one line. It's so cool.
Super applicable, yeah. Yeah, they use a lot of problem-solving methodologies. Everything's very structured in that. There's always a methodology to do what you want to do.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I mean, you've mentioned it a little bit already that you're always continually driving that kind of product development line at Nestle. Is there like an R&D department here in Australia, or maybe like a product development department where you are just that's their sole job, just to keep finding new products, creating new Kit Kat flavors or something like this?
Yeah. So at the Campbellfield factory, there is a product development section. The guy that invented the Kit Kat Gold, he sits in there. So yeah, they have a section dedicated to product development. Campbellfield's quite special in the way that they have it on site. Other sites like Gympie that I was at last year, product development is off in an international product technologist centre, and we only had a packaging specialist development person on site.
Okay.
A lot of it's done over in specialist centres overseas. And some of it's done on site because the site we're at, we make products for our market. So we develop them for our market, by our market, and it makes more sense to do it that way.
Good to give it to the whole end user from inception kind of approach thing, and it makes things a whole lot faster and easier.
Yeah, I think because Australians, like, we love mint and we love caramel, and it's sort of, we're very set in the flavors we like. Other, like Japan, they have mango and all these weird cats that Australian market just wouldn't sort of go for.
Yeah, it does make more sense to have it overseas, and especially when you see like the Japan and Chinese and Korean markets have something like 2,000 different flavors of some of these chocolate bars, and ones you've never heard of. Exactly. So, I mean, do you know a little bit about what actually goes into the product development out of the Campbellfield facility, or is it just like a closely guarded secret?
It's not closely guarded. It's pretty well known because ultimately, once they come up with the concept, they have to trial it on the line. So they'll trial first in there. They can do by hand the molding and that sort of thing. So they'll do it by hand to prove the concept from head office, and get that going. And then once we're really interested in this, we'd like to see how it goes on the line. Then they'll put it on a line for a short run. They'll have the packaging and everything designed. And then it sort of goes like, from there, do we have it approved? Is it going to run efficiently and that sort of thing? And if the market wants it, we'll put it product on the line.
That's cool.
But they will have their little code names.
Those are always the funniest parts of it. Yeah. That's very cool. So it doesn't sound like it's a lengthy process. Normally, it's kind of, we've got an idea, just make sure the recipe's all right, and then as long as it doesn't destroy the machine, you can kind of roll it out very quickly from there.
Yeah, I think the turnaround can be relatively quick. It's not something I've had a lot of involvement in yet. But yeah, it's probably more market approval that takes the longest bit of time to send your concept up to head office and have it. They'll have it tasted by tasters and, sort of put it next to competitors that are maybe similar and make sure that we're getting a 60-40 like buy-in with Nestle before they come to producing it.
Yeah, wow, that's aggressive. You've got to have 60-40 to be able to like have your product on the market. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that, not pulling any punches. So, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit already, but I mean, how has current events kind of affected Nestle as a business? What's been going on with you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, at a factory level, it's been really, I suppose, different to people who are in offices. Like, if you're in an office, you just worked from home, and it was pretty straightforward.
Mm.
In the factory, we've had various levels of restrictions, depending on what's going on around us. I mean, the factory I'm in a hotspot suburb at the moment, so
Oh, wow.
when it first kicked off, we kicked off 2 meter distancing. They arranged the canteen so that we had to all sit apart from each other. Then we implemented face masks maybe about a month ago. So yeah, extra sanitizing of areas, that sort of thing. I think because it's a food factory, we already have quite high levels of hygiene.
Definitely.
So hand washing and all that sort of thing, it's not uncommon. It's something we always do. So that wasn't new. It was just stepping it up one more level.
Yeah. Of course, they'd have to make it even more aggressive just because you are a food production company.
Yeah. But like supply wise, it hasn't been too bad for us. Nestle tends to have a few backup suppliers, so even if you lose one, you will always have someone. We haven't sort of found that it stopped production or anything like that. It's just given us a way to do things.
Yeah, definitely. So you haven't had any kind of interruptions with supply chain between the states? So is it mainly just been like international interruptions?
Yeah, there's been a international couple of suppliers where it was sort of doubtful whether they would be able to supply. But yeah, like I said, we often will have 2-3 suppliers available to us.
Yeah, and you've got like backup suppliers on site as well to keep you going for a couple of weeks or months.
Yeah, not quite months. It's all very lean, like only need, because the more you carry, the more you incur costs for it.
Yeah.
But yes,
some of your food supplies would go off after a time as well.
Yeah, if you keep it for too long, you're kind of restricted to what you have to run.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it hasn't been too bad. It's just been different.
Okay. Oh, well, it's still interesting to hear about. I suppose the next question I've got to ask you is, how did you actually find your first job at Nestle? Like what attracted you to the company in the first place, and how did you kind of break into the company?
Yeah, so I always love telling this story. I'm glad that many students are going to hear it because it's a bit of a don't give up even if it's not working story. I grew up near the Nestle factory, so I've always driven past and seen the Kit Kat sign. I was always by the steam coming out of the roof and that sort of thing. Third year uni, I didn't have any luck finding an internship. So I actually started inquiring on websites, and Nestle was one of them. And I just sent a request and I said, hi, just on their general website, I'd love to do a tour of your factory. I live nearby. Is there any chance I could do something like that? And they said, no, but we'll take your resume. And I went, okay.
Even better.
Yeah, they sent that around to a few sites and I got an internship at Broadford, which is about an hour out of Melbourne, and they make the Allen's lollies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a role for electrical or mechanical engineer they were looking for, but they saw qualities in me that they said they felt I would thrive even without the sort of technical background, if that makes sense. They saw some, more qualities that you can't necessarily learn.
The cross-discipline kind of skills, just like data analysis and just like management of systems type stuff.
Yeah, and I think they sort of said from a factory perspective, it's easy to go unnoticed if you're not ready to sort of put yourself forward for things, and especially when you're working with operators who are quite set in their ways and that sort of thing. So they felt that I was valuable in that way. So I did my internship with them third year, and from there they put me forward as a candidate for the graduate program. I got flown to Sydney into the last round of the assessment for it, which was a assessment interview to a whole bunch of people at head office.
Okay.
And then I got one of the 2 positions for the program that year.
Oh, beauty.
So yeah, it was really sort of it came about because I had done the internship and it worked out after that.
That's very cool. I love the whole part about how you saw the factory growing up and you're like, oh, did you always want to work there, or was it just...
I think so. I always had some sort of interest in it. I always wanted to know what was going on inside.
Yeah, because we've got, I think it was one of the Cadbury factories is not too far from my house, so we used to go past it all the time, and you could smell them making the chocolate first thing in the morning. You're like, oh, this is amazing. I just want to stand here all day.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so, where do you think your career will take you next? Are you just planning on staying with Nestle and maybe moving to a different facility, or have you got kind of like a trajectory path mapped out?
Yeah, so at the moment, I'd love to stay with Nestle. I think the fact that they're global really intrigues me. I would love
Mm,
to have the opportunity to move overseas and work.
definitely.
So the fact that they could offer me that, and it's well heard of in Nestle that they would offer you that, is
Mm,
good. My graduate program ends this year.
okay.
After that, they will put you in a job somewhere, so you sort of guaranteed that security, which is so yeah, I don't have a lot of not say I don't pick where the job is, if that makes sense. So you
Yeah.
put forward your interests and you say, this I'd really like to do, and then they'll put it out to other sites and say, we've got this person coming up, what do you think, do you have anything
Mm,
available? And you will move based off where the role is. So I
yeah.
think that's one thing that's like, for me it's really appealing. I love to move around, and I've always
Definitely, I'm the same
liked
way.
yeah,
Yeah.
so living in regional Queensland didn't bother me. Moving back to Melbourne didn't bother me.
Mm.
Moving at the end of the year, I look forward to it. Um, but I think it's something you have to be open to if you want to work for a company that's so big like Nestle.
Definitely.
It's bound to happen at some point.
Yeah. So, if you could move overseas, where do you think you'd move to?
I don't know. The head
That,
office
that's
is
a
in
tough question.
Switzerland. Pretty cool.
Yeah. I think
Um,
just Europe in general always seems to be like the go-to for a lot of these big companies because I mean that's normally where their head offices are. So like you've got
yeah,
Nestle in Switzerland, you've got Shell in the Netherlands, or just heaps of them all around. So it's always an amazing experience to go overseas and just like experience that culture and that kind of work from a different frame of reference, basically.
yeah, and I think once you get experience in a factory, you sort of become not a specialist, but you understand the technology and the processes. So it's quite
Mm,
applicable to them in a factory that does the same sort of thing.
definitely.
And handy, and yeah, it could be anywhere,
Yeah.
hopefully.
So, could you tell us a little bit more about the grad program that you're a part of? Is that like a regular occurrence for Nestle? What's kind of involved?
Yeah, so it comes up every year, and I think for this year it's actually closed already.
Okay.
But it does come up every year. It's called the Next Gen program, and for
Mm,
engineers, it's the technical and production stream. I do know a lot of chemical engineers have been hired through this because
yeah.
we're very well-rounded people.
Mm,
We're not sort of too technical, if that makes sense. You know, we
mm,
tend to come out with a lot of skills that are not necessarily technical based.
mm,
And a company like Nestle values that sort of thing and sees a management
mm.
perspective.
Okay.
So ultimately, going into the program fast tracks you into being a manager
Mm,
of some sort, which you get to experience even in your grad program.
yeah. Okay, so is it not just chemical engineers that are involved in this next gen grad program? It's a whole range of you, and they all kind of assign you the same or similar roles.
Yeah, so you all will do similar things.
Mm,
You all do similar 6 month rotations,
mm,
not necessarily at the same time. They put you in different sites.
yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't have to be chemical engineers. It's open to most engineering fields.
Mm,
Certain years they'll look for certain engineering depending on what they need in the company. So it's a bit dependent on what's needed as well.
okay.
But yeah, I know a lot of chemical engineers have come through it and are
Mm,
now managers of some sort in the company.
okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, so it's good to know that the program works and you've got a good career ahead of you from it.
yeah, pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how long does the program actually go for? Is it 2 or 3 years with like 6 month
It's two
rotations?
years.
And
Yeah, 2 years.
okay, and then you change locations every 6 months.
You change locations after a year.
Okay, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Um,
you'll be two sites.
right. Okay, cool. So how can anyone listening at home kind of get involved in the grad program or the internship program?
So I think the grad program, that's just simply go to the website.
Mm,
Um, yeah, like I said, I think it's closed for this year. I don't know exactly when it closed.
yeah.
But I do know that when I did mine, I had already done interviews and stuff by June. So yeah. For internships, they don't have a set program, Nestle, but I
Mm,
would say don't let that stop you from trying to get one because they definitely do internships.
mm,
It's just not a program as such. So I
yeah.
know the site I'm at now, they've had a couple of chemical engineering interns doing vacation programs with them,
Mm,
but it's just not advertised as an overall Nestle program.
yeah, it's just kind of like a as needed basis, and they'll just kind of pick people when they find them type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know like one girl was working on a refrigeration project, so they knew they had
Mm.
that work, and then they advertised based off what was needed.
Okay. So yeah, basically just keep an eye on the job spaces and really push hard on LinkedIn and just see what you can get.
Yeah,
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 definitely.
definitely.
Um,
Don't be scared to send around your name and your resume and that sort of thing, because I think it'll eventually hit the right person.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, for anyone trying to follow your kind of career path as it is so far and trying to get involved at Nestle, what kind of advice would you have for anyone trying to break into the food production industry?
I would just say, um, yeah, I think just get your shoe in somehow, like get your foot in the door and
Yeah.
go from there. Because once you are in there and you can show them what you're capable of,
Mm,
it's amazing what they'll put you for.
mm,
I think, yeah, I found it really hard through the not getting jobs. It's sort of like you keep applying for all these internships and jobs, and everyone
yeah.
is a rejection, and it's really disappointing.
Mm,
And you know how good you are, and you have lots of skills that are really valuable. But it's often hard to get that across in online psychometric tests and
yeah,
interviews and that sort of
definitely.
stuff. So
Yeah.
I think if you get your foot in and show them what you are and how good you are
Mm,
and what you can offer the company, then there's no stopping you from there, really.
yeah, definitely. Just the last thing as well, out of curiosity, what are the work perks of working for Nestle? Do you get like a chocolate allowance or something? Because I know a lot of like breweries and other food production companies. I know that they have like a beer allowance or they have like free samples. Like Cadbury, they've got all the rejected samples they get sold for like 1 cent each. Has Nestle got something like that for employees?
Yeah, so we have like on the line, if you're in the production floor, it's pretty much like
Yeah.
quality control if you happen to eat a piece of Kit Kat or something. So yeah, it's not uncommon to
I
have
love
some
that.
while you're
Oh,
but
that's
in terms
great.
of buying like family, anything that is like when we start up, we might have a whole bunch of stuff that comes through that can't be
Mm,
sold for whatever reason. That
mm,
all goes to what we call staff sales, and it's like
yeah.
buy a box of 10 bars for like $10 or something. So it's still
I
super
love that.
cheap.
That's great.
You have all the Nestle products that Australia makes in the
Yeah.
one shop, which is convenient.
Oh, that makes up. That's like a Christmas bonus right there. You don't have to worry about like extra incentives. Like that's it right there.
Yeah, pretty much. The best you can do is get on the taste panel, and then it's like you have to go every day and taste the Kit Kat before they'll release it.
Oh, I love that.
Um,
So is that like
which
the,
people,
the morning quality control that like someone has to eat a Kit Kat every morning?
yeah, you have to have so many people taste it before they'll let it out the door.
Oh, I love that.
People complain, and I'm still trying to figure out why, because I love it. It's like 9:45 comes around, like there.
That's perfect. Oh, wait, so it's just random people in the factory. It's just everyone.
Yeah, you're trained for it, so you train
Oh,
it, and
okay.
then you show up every morning and do it.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been amazing having you on the podcast and finding all about your work at Nestle. Thanks for coming on. Hope everyone at home got a lot out of it. For everyone listening at home, that's it for this week. But tune in next week. We've got more guests lined up for you. If you haven't seen it already, we have actually put the channel on YouTube as well. So all the episodes will be released at the same time on our YouTube channel. As always, remember to like and comment any questions you've got for future episodes down below, and we'll work them into upcoming episodes. But for now, see you guys later.